First time, huh? Morning. Um, well, this is our opportunity really to kind of wrap up kind of this season and talk about it and air some stuff out and all that. And I got a lot of thoughts. And this season has ended too early. Um, we have been unaccustomed to being done by now, and it's uh, it's frustrating for us and disappointing that excuse me that. Here we are talking about a football season, and we should, in our minds, still be playing, but we didn't get the job done to get that done, and so what's important is what are we going to do now, and I think it's important for you guys to realize that this is an enormous opportunity for us and time for us to process all that's gone on and what's taken place. We need time to do that. This is what we're doing, right? We've been doing it all along as we always do, but this time as the season ends is when really we focus in. And so from everything that you can imagine, anything you could ask us about, maybe you'll help us uncover some things, but likely that we're going to be on it. And John and I have a big job. And as we always say to you at this time of year, there's a lot of huge decisions to be made. We're faced with big challenges always. There's a lot of people involved. There's families involved. There's heartfelt friends and loved ones and all that we're dealing with. And we take all of that into account to compete our butt off to figure out how to get better and to get back on track the way we want to be. I think it's really, I don't mind reiterating that we have a real formula for how we do stuff, and we have I mentioned the word process. There's a process to it, and we're committed to making it happen. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and this year it didn't work out the way we had planned. We had extremely high hopes for this season, and things occurred during the way and along the way, and we weren't able to adapt as well as we would like to keep us on track to be in the playoffs and to be fighting for the championships here all the way at the very end. And it's hard on us, but yet we have to adjust to what we've learned. So. With that, John and I, we put our brains together with the help of our staff and the people with us to take a very aggressive approach at this point, and to an aggressive approach in our evaluations of what took place and what we need to do and what's at hand right now. And that's how we're going. You've never seen us be any different. We've competed at every turn. We see every next opportunity is a chance to compete, and so we'll do that in terms of personnel, in terms of our technical side of our game, the administrative part of our game, the everything from how we rehab to how we play call, and that's just what we're doing. And so I'm pumped up about it. I'm excited about that challenge. I'm upset that we have to be facing it this early. I like another couple months or 6 weeks here. It would be nice, but that's not the way this one is. So we got to go after it, and nothing is going to change other than maybe our resolve is even more than ever to go after it in a very aggressive, competitive way. And there was issues during the season that that I think the big ones I would like to address for you is that we have a real formula how we win, and we've been unable the last 2 years to incorporate a major aspect of that, and it's to run the football the way we want to run it. I think you see tremendous examples around the league of teams that have turned their fortunes around, and they've turned it around in a formula that I think should sound familiar to you, about teams that run the football, teams playing good defense and doing the kicking game thing. That's the formula that has proven historically the best in this game. We have been committed to that from the start, but unfortunately we have not been able to recapture it the way that we have in years past. Last year Russell was banged up all year long and couldn't contribute the way he normally did. Look what he did this year. He ran for 500 yards and was a huge factor throughout the year. We needed that 500 last year to go along with what we had, and we might have had different fortunes. This year we weren't able to complement the other end of it the way we want to, and for some obvious reasons, but also just disappointed that we weren't able to pull it off. So that's really kind of what we're dealing with. We've got personnel issues, we've got contract and cap issues that we'll deal with, which we always tell you that there's not much we can talk to you about that stuff. But those are difficult challenges that involve people, and like I said, families and people that we've been with for a long time, and some people we've been with for a short time. I know also that you looked at this season, and I know you guys have questioned this season about, did we take our shot because of the status of our roster at all? Did we make drastic measures to go get guys outside of our roster during the season because this was our shot and all that. No, we were competing. We had some really clear thoughts about how our roster was going to come together, and one of our guys that we drafted very high wasn't able to play. So we made a big move and found a fairly young guy in Sheldon Richardson. I don't know, he's 26 or something years old, whatever he is, and we're able to attract him to our club to fill that void right there. George Fant went down. We expected George to make extraordinary progress, and when we lost George, we got a little bit out of balance. John immediately went after it and found a guy that we think is going to be an instrumental factor, not just in what he's affected us by already in a short time, but the leadership and the expertise that Dwayne Brown brings to us is extraordinary, and we need it. And we think that's going to be a positive for the future. But those are moves that weren't made any more drastic than the moves we're going to make this year. We're trying to go for it every time we go. There's not a year okay, let's sit back and wait till next year. There's not a week, there's not a day, there's not a moment that we think like that. So I want to make sure and share some thoughts with you guys because I know you have other questions and stuff that you want to ask, but we're fired up about what's coming up, and it ain't going to be easy. It's hard. It's hard. Look at our division has shifted. The new clubs that have come in, and they've done a nice job, and the Niners finishing strong, and the Rams doing a great job in turning their thing around, and the Cardinals are going to be a whole new thing. We don't know what that's going to be. Our division is going to be challenging as ever, and we're going to have to be up to the task, and so I'm fired up about it. I'm ready to go. Any of those other conversations that you guys heard or wanted to ask questions about, you don't even have to ask them. I ain't going anywhere. I'm fired up to be here and can't wait to get going. And I feel great, and I'm pumped, and I need to translate that and transfer that into the rest of the program so everybody's ready to go. We need you guys to be jacked up too. You're going to kick back and take it easy now. You're going to do your work and bust it and see what you can uncover. Everybody's in it, and so we couldn't be more fired up about that. But unfortunately, it's just too soon, and the frustrations of that, they dig deep, and sometimes, as much as I hate to learn the hard way, you've heard me say that before, I hate to learn the hard way, but sometimes you got to. A major issue, another one I would address for you, a major issue, probably my biggest regret this season is how the penalties factored into our season. And, we've been in this situation before, and we've been able to overcome the issues in our style of play. It didn't affect us dramatically, but this year it was more of a factor. And our margin of, it wasn't as such that we could endure it as well. And that's a major aspect of us to change that I'm clear on how I'm going to go about that, and it's going to start way back to the first day, April 16th, and we'll make a change there, and it has to happen because I don't know that our margins are going to be as big as they've been in years past. I don't know. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. The return of guys to our team are going to be really crucial as we watch what happens. The critical guys, I think, is the runners. I think the runners need to come back to life to us, and that's Chris Carson and CJ and Mike coming back, and whoever else can be part of that thing. J.D. McKissick was a really good, positive aspect of our team this year, and we need to make that position more competitive. That's going to be one that we're focused on because of the durability issues that we faced for the last 2 seasons. It's been really trying for us, but those are tremendous candidates to be battling at it, and I'm hoping that that'll make a difference. The growth of the offensive line is huge. We made strides. I think I'm so excited to have the leadership that Dwayne brings. It's something that we haven't had. The guy's been around and been through it all. Tough, smart, physical, the whole thing. He'll be a big factor, and he'll take on a lot of responsibility. Was not able to really shoulder that this time around. He was just scrambling to just catch up with us this year, but I think through an off season and all of that, he will have a big impact on Justin and the other guys, and Fetty and those guys that are as we return. So. Defensively, it's going to be really interesting to see. We've got a bunch of guys that in the defensive line that I'm excited about. We had big rotations going. Dion Jordan, these are issues that we have with guys that don't have contracts. We've got issues to try to return guys. But Dion Jordan had a marvelous turnaround and showed an impact that could be really instrumental. Nas Jones, who missed a bunch of the year, but really showed us a lot of good stuff. Jaren Reed, as a leader in this group, is a fantastic competitor and tough dude. If we could be fortunate enough to get Sheldon back, that would be huge for us. And Frankie coming back. Frankie had his first real year of really being in it the whole time and had a nice, solid season for us and a lot of upside there. So there's a lot of positives when you build it around Bobby and KJ and Earl and some of the guys that have been with us for some time. We've got to get some guys back from injuries. We'll see how that goes. So anyway, I wanted to make sure and just give you some time here and talk at you a little bit so that you can hear me, and because I think that is what this time of year calls for, and I'm sure you got some stuff you want to ask. I'll see if I can answer them. Some I will, some I won't. So I'm fired up about it. I'll leave you with that thought. I'm fired up about all the challenges. It's going to be hard, and it's always going to be hard. It's never not, and we're ready for it. What's up?
Can you elaborate at all on what the situations are for Cliff and Cam and just what might be?
Honestly, I really can't, and I shouldn't say any more than that we don't know yet. And I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. Both those guys are marvelous people and competitors and all of that, and we'd love to, see them through the rest of their career. I don't know what's gonna happen there.
Is it safe to say those are quality of life issues beyond football for them?
I think so for both those guys. Yeah, I think they're concerns.
Is one guy's more severe?
No, I don't know enough to know that. I know they both couldn't play, so we'll see. We'll count on two. Whatever those guys decide will be the right thing, and whichever direction they go, they've got such great brains and character and all that stuff that they'll make great choices, and we'll support them whatever that is.
How has Richard Sherman's rehab gone, and what would you expect for him?
He's going beautifully. He's got another surgery coming up on his other leg to clean some stuff up. Not the same Achilles surgery that he had, but he will have it's a much lesser degree recovery and all that. It'll be a 4 to 6 week thing, he thinks. But he's going to take care of him, so make sure that he's right. That's really important. But he's really on the positive side. He's had a tremendous attitude about it, and he feels pretty darn good. I think he's out of the boot like this week or something like that. So on goes his progress. I think in the next couple weeks or something like that, he'll do the other one.
Is that surgery on his Achilles or is it on a different part of his leg?
It isn't in that area. There's bone spurs and things like that. He's got a cleanup job that he needs to do. He had problem on both sides throughout the year.
With the run game, is it harder to find or evaluate that consistency when you're only a couple years removed from a very unique talent in Marchand?
Yeah, I don't mind mentioning that he had a tremendous impact on it, it was historical, and he was awesome. But in his last year, Thomas was the guy that took over, and really he wasn't able to contribute. And we had a well organized, established running game at that time, and then Thomas broke his leg, and he didn't get back. And when he came back, he broke his leg again, and so we didn't get back on track. We have not recovered with the guys with the opportunities that they've had. The guys have had plenty of opportunities, and they've had a lot of chances. We've had a number of guys we've had to go through. Unfortunately, I don't know why that happened like that, but it did, and just a bunch of guys have had trouble staying healthy. So that's an area of focus. I think you guys are going to be talking about it. We'll all be talking about it. Who can we add to make it more competitive? But I got to tell you now, I was so excited about Chris, and I know not a lot of people were. He was available to us in the 7th round, so not a lot of people saw that. But I've been so excited about what he showed us in the short time that we had him, and his dynamic play. He's a catcher. He's a runner. He's a blocker. He's a special teams guy. He's big, strong, fast. He's all of that stuff. And he had some problems in his career to establish that where it wasn't recognized by the rest of the people around the league. But he's a marvelous guy to be coming back to. And he almost, he was going to make it back, and I know we talked about that, but he had a setback. He turned his ankle in his running, in his rehab, just on air, and it set him back, so he didn't get to make the return. We thought he would make it back the last couple games, but it just set him back. So that'll be a really interesting position to watch and a big focal point.
As much as you do want to run the football, when you look at the stats of the season for that group, 1 rushing touchdown from a running back and some struggles we've had inside the 22 is a real problem.
Yeah, but it just shows you if you can't run it with authority, then it's just going to show up down there. And that was really indicative, unfortunately, and I won't tell you that we really made a concentrated effort to go back and recapture this year, and we were on it and ready to go, and then it just didn't come together for us, and for all of the reasons, and we're not losing the essence of who we are, what we're trying to become, and how the formula that is championship, and I can't give you more evidence. Just look around the league, look what just happened, look at Philly, and look at the Rams, and the teams that have just turned this thing around and done so many good things. It's there, and it's really clear. It's like there's no secret there. It's a great formula that a lot of people understand.
One of the first names you mentioned when you talked about the defensive line was Dion Jordan. Just with what he did and how long he's been out, just how bright is his future potential?
I think he was highly, highly regarded coming out of college. I think for the right reasons, and he just had 3 years of torment, trying to get back to the game, and he did in the time he's been with us, he was just a remarkable example of diligence and grit and willpower and all of that. And when he made it back, it took him a while to kind of knock the rust off. You guys asked about that. It took him a little while, and he's still coming. He's just getting started. He's a brand new player, coming up, and the opportunity now to be in this offseason healthy. He's healthy coming out of the season, so he can work hard to develop and get better. Is really positive, and we don't know what the limit is, but we're really excited about it.
How much better could he be next year now that he's another year removed from the
I
knee?
think he'd be a legitimate factor. I mean, I don't how good. I don't know. I don't know that. But I do know should be a legitimate factor in the rush and in the run game. He's a good pursuit guy too. He's strong and big and all that. He just has a really unproven background, and there's not much to go on there. And so we're having to piece it together with the few plays that we got. But he made some real positive overtures, and it's an exciting prospect for us, really exciting prospect. Where we lost a guy, from the draft, maybe we can, it's not exactly the same spot, but maybe we can be fortunate enough to make it up with what he can do.
You mentioned this morning on the radio that you sat with Russell at halftime in the game Sunday and challenged him. How often has that happened, and why did it
Hasn't happened often. No, it hasn't happened very often. And I just felt like we just needed to focus on it. And we had quick, good conversation. We're so connected on communicating. We communicate very quickly and efficiently. And we talked about the problems that happened, and he had his thoughts about it. He missed a couple opportunities, but he was also under duress with the pass rush that was happening, and things settled down. The guys did better up front. They gave him a better shot. He grooved right into it and turned the game around, from his end of it. But the guys up front contributed to that in a big way, and we started to make our catches, and everything started to work again, put us back in the game. I just think that's nothing new. I think one of the stats, and I don't know how to. I wish I could tell you how this happened, but we had the biggest point differential in the NFL, from the second halves of the seasons this year. We're number one in the league, scoring more points than anybody else in that differential. The defense played well too. It had just happened again. Unfortunately, that was the formula that showed up again in that game, but the potential is all there to really be something special. We just got to capture it.
As you look at Jimmy Graham's touchdown total, it's high. I think it was tied for the third best in his career, but everything else was way down. The number of catches, yards per catch, all that kind of stuff. How would you evaluate his season?
Well, I thought he had a big factor in the season, in the fact that he did score. There was the stretch in there where he didn't catch a game and y'all thought he was going to retire or something like that, and so, but he did have a stretch there, and his stretch and Russell's stretch was kind of the same. Offensively, our stretch was kind of the same. We were not on it there for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and we won the Dallas game without a whole lot of offense that day. We were efficient, we scored and did some things, but we just got in a funk there on what was going on, and that's when Jimmy was having a great season, and I think that's really what it was, that span of time right there that we weren't on it. I thought that the chemistry was as visible as you could make it. We were forcing teams to have to double him down there, and if they don't double him, we're going to be able to get it to him, and that's what we had pictured it to be. It just took a while, and both those guys hooked up, and it was really the coming together conceptually and through the hard work that really paid off eventually. And he was as forcible as anybody in the NFL down there.
Any sense of where he's going to be next year?
We've talked to him. We love Jimmy, and we'd love for him to be with us.
Shaq Griffin was saying after the game that he's grown a lot in his
Who did?
Shaq.
Okay.
In his press coverage over the years. How have you seen that develop for him through the year, and then just kind of on his season?
He's had a marvelous year. Hasn't been anything but the most positive things we've talked about it when talking about Shaq's process from the time in anticipating that he was going to be able to handle it. Before he'd even really tried, we had really high hopes from him because every indication is he's going to be a great football player and a great contributor on this team. His mentality, his poise, his diligence, his skill, his smarts, his toughness. Everything's there. You saw him, he finally got his first pick of the season, but he'll have a lot of interceptions in the future and big returns and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing to hold him back. And he's got tremendous ability, and he's really fast. He's legitimately fast, and that's that's such a great attribute for a corner. And it's and when you run in the 4-3s, there's a special element, and he's big and he's strong. So I think he's going to be a great player. Let me say this too. I thought that Byron Maxwell did a great job to finish. I think it was exactly what we would have hoped would happen. That when we get him back in our system and we turn him back into the style that we play in, that he might recover the same kind of play. I think he did. I thought Maxie got back to playing ball the way we had seen him in the past, and the way that when he went out of here at the end of free agency, it was highly regarded. So I was really thrilled about that, and it really showed up the last 2 weeks. And when he really was finally at his greatest comfort level and his confidence and all of that, so that was pretty obvious, pretty evident. We'd love to have him back.
We've seen, whether it's young corners or guys being brought in, sometimes they have a little bit of an adjustment period with what you guys do. In that sense, did he exceed your expectations, being able to jump in and play?
No, it was exactly what we were hoping for. Really, we were hoping for this to happen. That's why we brought him back with confidence and the thought that if we put him right back in our system, we think he could.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Max. Yeah.
Rookie coming in, being able to, because some guys take some time with what you guys asked you to do.
Yeah, well, if you remember, I gave Richard a lot of credit there. I thought Sherm really modeled beautifully for him. I don't know that Richard told him everything to do, but he showed him. Sherm had come back with a resolve to really be technique perfect, and he had set out throughout the whole offseason to recapture the essence of the technique and the skill that he had acquired over the years. That at times kind of had gotten a little bit out of whack and not quite as solid as he had been, and he took to it, and that just happened to be all that Shaq saw. And he saw, and Sherm is a great worker, and so he had all this great example and illustration for what we were looking for, and he just kind of, and like I said, they sat right next to each other the whole time, and Sherm deserves some credit there, but Shaq had to do it. So,
With Shaq, what do you think the next step in his game is?
just come back and get playing again, and he's got to use his experience. Utilize what he's gained, and he missed some stuff this year. He let a couple of plays get away that he totally can handle, and it's just awareness and. As we talk about the game slowing down a little bit more, recognizing things a little bit sooner than he does now, all of that will come. He's got an enormous amount of growth in him from year one to year two. He's been so much in the middle of it, he hasn't had a chance to step back and really gain the perspective that will really help him, that it's already coming. He'll be smarter today than he was at any part during the season, just because he's separated already and he comes back, it'll clear up for him, and he'll just be better. And so we'll have the highest of expectations for him, and we're fortunate to have him. He's a marvelous part of this draft class.
What's your thoughts on the other 3 DBs you drafted? Mike Tyson, Delano Hill, Tedrick Thompson, how they've come along this year? Where do you
We really think they're all going to be really competitive now. They did nothing but good stuff. Athletically, physically, their intent. There's a camaraderie already with them, that's going to be important for the future. They're going to be in part of this thing as we grow. I don't know if I said this to you, but I was really able in the meeting room on our last meeting here today to talk to these guys like I talked to guys 5 and 6 years ago, and that there is a young nucleus and a new nucleus, guys that have come to us, and I don't want to miss that. Bradley McDougall coming to us, and Dion coming to us, and Dwayne coming to us, and Garvin, and all those guys that kind of came to us. They're part of that new class as well, and the class from last year. These are good groups of guys now, and so we're very optimistic about the roster. Remember, we talked about roster depth all year. It was because of those guys. Well, now those guys are going to be experienced. They all had, for the most part, had a chance to play and contribute where they could grow. Darbo, where you saw David Moore finally got in the game. Those guys are going to be factors. They're going to be factors. They're legitimate factors on this team as we move forward, and they'll compete for more playing time and all of that. That's part of what's fueling all of the energy that we have about this looking forward. This is a terrific looking group. Posick coming in, Roos getting a chance to play, Dwayne's emergence. So Fetty will be a second-year tackle for the first time. There's a lot of stuff there that Nick Vanette, made a really good jump this year for us too. So there's a lot of stuff here, and that's part of why we're so pumped.
As you're doing these assessments, are you convinced that John Schneider's going to be the GM?
Yeah, I am. Matter of fact, I am.
You've
I'm
been
convinced of that. Yeah.
You've been assured of that?
I'm convinced of answering your question exactly like I asked it. I think he's going to be here. Yeah, that's what I'm counting on.
Do you anticipate any significant changes with your staff, coordinators, or?
There's guys up for jobs now, and this is that time of year when stuff happens, and we'll see what goes. This is I mentioned on the radio today that I really, and you guys have been good so far, I appreciate it, that I think a lot of respect is to be dealt to these guys. They've got families and lives and careers and dreams and hopes, and as we all do, and we'll see what happens. I've always been here to help our guys, and I want them to go and do what they're capable of doing and meet their challenges of their lifetime as well, and I'm up for that. And when it works out, I do everything I can to help them, and we'll see what happens. So, but other than that, there's not much to be said about that at this point.
With the season over now, can you elaborate on what happened to McDowell and what his future holds? And if you can't, why not?
Art, there's not much I can tell you. That he had a traumatic accident, and it took a big toll. And at this point, we don't know any more than nothing has changed in the evaluation of it. It's a young man's future is in the balance of whatever the doctors say and what he can and is capable of doing. We really don't know, and at this point, we just have to just wait. I don't have anything else to offer to you. It's extraordinarily unfortunate for him as a young man, and extraordinarily unfortunate for our organization as well. Because we had he's a tremendous prospect, and it would have been a beautiful fit. And if that ever comes back around where that happens, then we'll benefit from it, as of course he will. But I don't have any information for you that upgrades us from what we've known.
Is there any reason to think Earl Thomas wouldn't be part of the team next year, just given some of the things he said?
Earl had a terrific year. He had a really good year, and a marvelous job of recovering from his injury and coming back. Shocked us with his return, but I shouldn't have been shocked at how competitive he was. I shouldn't have been surprised by that, but I just thought it was such a big injury that it would take him longer. But the first days he jumped back on the practice field, he shouldn't have been out there, but he was, and he never really backed off from that. So he had a marvelous season, and here he is going to the Pro Bowl again. He deserves it, and Earl had some media glitches along the way here, but at the end, that's not his wheelhouse right there. He's a ball player.
Coaching the same guys for as long as you have now, are there certain challenges when it comes to motivating guys or getting through to guys that maybe your message their first or second year?
Yeah, and I think there is a challenge to that. I think coaches are always faced with that challenge. Some I'll share with you that, and I mentioned it to these guys yesterday, that nobody comes back the same. They're not the same. Their lives are shifting so quickly, and times change so fast, and things are happening. And whether it's the examples of guys just going from their first year to their second year, or guys finding their wives and having their families and facing new contracts and facing free agency, all of these factors, as well as just natural maturing, things that are happening in their lives and all of those things make them come back different every year. And we have to see who they are and reevaluate and not assume that they are the same. They're not the same. They're not different bad. They're just different, and they grow just like as we all do. Well, these guys are right in the formative times of their lives, and so we have to stay with these guys. So the challenges are always there for the coaches to find the ways to communicate at the cutting edge of making sense to these guys and motivating them and keeping them jacked and pumped and all that. And I don't think it ever stops, and it never ends. And the challenge, because of those changes, their vision, their perspective shifts sometimes, as do ours, and we all have to just keep working at growing together. That's why I always come back to competing. If we keep competing to find a way to make sense and to help a guy and keep pushing him towards his best, then we're doing what we can do. And sometimes we do it better than others. Sometimes they shock the heck out of us with all kinds of things that happen. And it's a very dynamic process that we're involved with, and it's exciting and thrilling, and it's a big part of what this thing's all about.
Going back to something you said earlier, a lot of people from the outside who don't know what's going on like to speculate, maybe extracurricular things, whether it be political ambitions or, raising a family.
I don't think Earl's running for office. Is that what you're talking about? I don't think he is.
Ambitions, but just being politically active and all that stuff, socially active, or having families and having wives, where maybe a few years ago it was all about football. People wonder if that maybe affected the on-the-field product. Do you think any of that stuff had any effect on you?
I think it had an effect in the game out there that week in Tennessee. Yeah, I do think it had an effect. And I think it had an effect on a lot of teams, a lot of players. It was an extraordinarily heated time, and I think that was a different amount of emotional output that occurred before the game. And, it looked like it, the way we played. It looked like it took its toll. And, we had gone through the whole process and done what we did, that we needed to do it, and we couldn't avoid it. We had to face it, and we had to deal with it. And the other team called us up and said, well, what are you guys going to do? And we said, we're going to do this. And so they said, okay, we'll do that too. I don't know if they went through the same process we went through or not. I don't know. But I know we did. And, honestly, if I could have done something about it, I would have. I don't think there was anything we needed to face it. It's too real. But I did find out during the course of the year that guys didn't want to stay on the topic. It was too draining, and it was too deep, and it was. And I hope in the off season guys can come back around to find their truths and what they want to work at and learn and grow with. But it was draining, and it's a real life discussion that we're talking about when we're talking about equality and justice and stuff like that. There's real life stuff here that needs to be talked about and needs to continue to be connected with. But in the course of a football season and all those factors that contributed to keeping that alive, some came from across the country, some came from right internally, right in the locker room. It was all over the place, and it was taxing. And I think it is something to not be forgotten about this football season. I think it was part of it.
It was taxing beyond that Tennessee game.
I thought we did okay after that. I thought we handled it well, and you could see the guys didn't want to, but there still was some aftermath. But it was just that real, and more so to some people than others. But I took it very personally, and was trying to be there and be available to help us get through it, and make sense of it and all that. And so.
This isn't the first year you guys have had some of those outside issues that you've dealt with inside the locker room. Why do you feel like it was more taxing this year than maybe previous years?
The topic of this year couldn't have been more poignant, I mean, think of what happened to Mike Bennett. Think what happened to Mike, on the week off. I mean, that affected a lot of guys, because the truth hit home, and it affected a lot of our fans. We heard from all kinds of people that wrote in and contacted Mike and contacted us, but they never really saw the situation until they saw it with somebody who they really cared about, and they cared about Mike, and they heard Mike was on the ground and gunned to his head or whatever that took place, and he was an innocent bystander, and they in sharing through that. I mean, how could that not have had an impact? It did have an enormous impact on Mike in particular. Well, he's a big personality around here, so he had to deal with it, and he worked as he could to try and put it to rest and all of that. But we're so connected that we feel each other's ups and downs and ins and outs and all of that. That's how we are. We're that tightly wired, and that's not any way. And I know I'm sure this is not an excuse at all. That's just what the facts of what was going on, and it was real. And I think hopefully we've gained and learned, and we're better and smarter for it. There was a time just a while ago our guys were asking, well, how should I think about Black Lives Matter? What should I think about that? Am I in support of it? Should I not be? I mean, those are the basic discussions that started us on this path of trying to uncover some truths for these young guys as they're growing up, and for old guys who are trying to figure it out too. White guys, black guys, brown guys, it doesn't matter. And we had a lot that we were dealing with, and life, it's life.
You said the guys told you that they wanted to move on. It was so taxing. How did they convey that? What was?
They didn't convey that as direct. They didn't come to me and say, "Hey, coach, can we stop talking about this stuff?" I watched it in them, and as I was still alert and tuned into the discussions, I could see that guys, they just wanted to stay away from it and just kind of put it to the side and let's go play ball. And I was all for that, but I was trying to steward our way through it, kind of, as best I could, and I sensed it was really obvious. And then I asked some guys, I said, what do you think? And they didn't want to stay on the topic, and which was good. It was fine. I think it was the honest reaction to, we need to focus on what's right here at hand and what's most important to them at the time, and we'll deal with those other things when we can. It just wasn't appropriate for us to be focused on that, and that made sense.
Is there a mechanism that you think you need to develop to try to manage these situations, or is it just so spontaneous that there's not much you can do?
Well, I think this one was about as spontaneous and in the mainstream as it could have been. I mean, it went all the way to the White House, all the way to went everywhere, and so I don't think it's going to be like that again. I don't know what situation could arise that could be so sensitive and so real and so important and all the rest. But we'll just see. I think I am more aware of maybe the capacity we have to handle topics and stuff like that, and I would like to keep them in the off season as best we could. And I do think that the experience of the conversation, the experience of the exchange, the experience of the growth is of value to our men. And I think it's of value to all of us to search and find out what our truths are. Because the closer these guys can get to the truth of who they are and what they're all about, the better performer they'll become and the better teammate they'll become as well. And that's kind of the part of our thinking.
Beyond Richard, who do you anticipate needing some off-season surgeries and cleanups and those sort of things at this point?
There's really, as of yesterday, there's just a few guys that have some stuff, and I don't want to call them because they may or may not. But we're not in bad shape at all. We go into the offseason very, very fortunate in that regard. We've kind of taken our hits during the year, and guys have had their chance to recover. So there's a couple, ankle cleanups and stuff like that. A couple shoulder things. One guy, I'll give you one. DJ Alexander, he's got some cleanups to do, shoulder and knee, I think. So, but there's not many guys like that, so we're in pretty good shape.
Do you think any of that impacted Michael Bennett's play this year? And he's kind of been vague about his future with the team as well. I mean,
would it have affected yours? Think about what he went through. And it wasn't just like on a small scale personal deal. It went, went nationwide and all that. So, but he did his best to handle it, and it's all he could do. So whether it had an impact, I don't know. Talk to Mike.
Did you hear from Paul Allen about any of the demonstrations or protests or anything like that? Was there ever a conversation?
We did communicate with Paul, yeah, and he was very supportive throughout. And it's a very liberal area, and he grew up and lived here, and he is it. He is this area, and there's a lot going on in the Northwest, and he was very much in tune with what was happening.
Everything you saw out of this team, what are you most encouraged about going forward?
I'm encouraged about the future of where we can go and what we can do. I hope that was conveyed, because I couldn't feel more optimistic about our chances to be really good again. I think there's a championship team sitting in this meeting room right here, and everybody's got to do their work. The challenge went out. I'll finish with this one, Dave, and I'll walk out. The challenge went out, and if there's gonna be a great team, we're gonna have to have great offseason, and each guy's gonna have to contribute a great offseason in his own right, and that means he's got to come back stronger and faster than ever, and they got to be committed to it, and they got to stay connected. And if we do those things, we'll give ourselves a chance to really put it together. And then you go, that's why, like the boomer says, that's why you play the games. You got to go out and play them, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
All right. Happy New Year.